But guess what? There's going to be some pretty loud bangs here today. We've got a lot of guns we're going to be showing you. We're going to try and give you a rough idea of the way history of firearms has developed in this country up to the point when the government didn't trust us anymore and wouldn't let us have proper guns anymore. But never mind, we'll go on. String there that you can see. And what he's going to do is, first of all, you'll see round his waist he has a series of little bottles. And in those bottles are measured charges of gunpowder. So he pours a charge of gunpowder down the muzzle of the gun. Obviously it drops right down to the bottom. He would then normally put a stone or a ball of lead on top of it, but in deference to the sheep over there, we decided we wouldn't do that today. Instead, we'll be using toilet paper, very fine stuff. He then rams it firmly down to the bottom, so we've now got, at the bottom of that long tube, we've got the gunpowder, and we've got what would have been a lead ball. Now, at the back of the gun is a very tiny hole, which leads out onto a small pan on the side. And you can see that Matt's now pouring some powder into the pan there, and that is what they call the priming charge. He's then very carefully blowing off any loose powder, because we don't want it to go off at the wrong moment. He will then get hold of that match, the wick, and then he'll see that what he'll do is he'll fasten to a little thing called the serpentine. Things that looks a little bit like a snake on the side of the gun. And what will happen is when he pulls the trigger, that piece of burning string will flop into, we hope, into the pan of gunpowder, setting it off. The flash will go through the hole, and with a little bit of luck, the gunpowder behind it will go off. Here we go. Pretty impressive, what? Now you can see, within about 10 minutes, you could probably fire another one. So I think, are you going to give us another one? Give us another one, just like the other one. Give us another one, do. So, as you can see, he pours down the powder down the muzzle. That's why they're called muzzle loaders, because they're always loaded from the muzzle end. Puts down his, what would be his ball, or in this case his piece of powder, his piece of paper. You'll notice he took it out of a little bag on the side, which is elegantly called the ball bag, for good reasons. He will then, once again, pour a little bit of powder into that pan on the back, getting his priming charge out. And what he'll be doing is he wants to make sure that his wick, that wick has got a good red end. It's glowing well, really glowing. So he'll blow on his end to get a good glowing red end. That's it. He will now put it into the serpentine, blowing off all the loose powder. And then he will give fire to his gun. He will give that gun some fire to make it go bang. That's where we get the term fire from. Okay, Matt, give fire onto your musket. There we go. That, ladies and gentlemen, was the very first of the handguns. Handgunny, arquebus, harquebus, hackbutt. They went by lots of different names. Flashes through into the main charge and off it goes. So it's not a very fast process. Now, the infantry man of the day was trained to fire 3 rounds in a minute. We're not trained, we're going to have a damn good go at it anyway. So what Matt is going to try and do now is to try and fire 3 rounds in a minute. And it's quite difficult because you've got to remember the sequence of things, and if you get it out of sequence, A, it doesn't go bang, or B, it goes bang exactly when you don't want it to. Okay, Matt, I shall look at my genuine 18th century electric watch. 3, 2, 1, commence. So he bites, spits. Well, the spitting, by the way, is quite important. If anybody's ever eaten any gunpowder, you'll know of the unfortunate effect it has on the digestive tract, shall we say. Okay, so and we've got a misfire already. This will happen in the real world. There we go. You noticed again, did you, the fizz boom? It's always a slightly slower process than anything else. And the people over there are getting the real benefit of it. It's like firework night over there, isn't it? It's great. I love it. But I've got to stand over here, you see, because I can see my watch then. Okay, oh, it's good on. He's on 30 seconds. Yes, you can do this. So that's 2, and he's just gone on to the 30 seconds now, or it's now 35 seconds to be more exact. So he's certainly got to get 3 rounds in a minute. There's no 2 ways about that. Notice each time the ramrod goes back into the pipes. Yes, and right, you could go for a 4th, could you, Matt? You've got 15, just under 15 seconds. I'll give you on the 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, did it 4 in a minute. Well done, Matt. That is some cavalry, or perhaps they were loading the big guns, the cannons and the like. So you can see that having done that, they bite, pour off, just as the same thing with them, pour the powder down the barrel. As you've seen, they've done that. They will then load the guns by ramming it firmly down again. Still got your ramrod, still very important. Ramrod back into the pipes, and then you'll see they'll bring them up to the shoulder, put a cap on the back, and then we're going to have a volley of 3. Okay, fire! And you'll see now to reload, the same sort of thing applies. We do exactly the same thing. Bite, and what's very important here, by the way, biting. If you were in the ranks and you lost your teeth, you couldn't bite. If you couldn't bite, you couldn't shoot. If you couldn't shoot, you got promoted to sergeant. I'm saying nothing, I'm wearing the stripes. So it was very important that you had your own teeth. And you can see they're just ramming now, preparing firing again, and once again they will give fire to their muskets. And you can see this is, whilst it's not tremendously faster, you will notice one thing, that when the gun goes off there's no fizz boom, it's bang straight away. And for the first time we have a gun that you actually know exactly when it's going to go off. So at last we've got a gun here that you could actually shoot as a sportsman at birds flying, because you knew when it was going to go bang. It wasn't a case of click, bang, it would keep bang straight away. So at last you have one that will really do the job. So there's still just a couple of rounds to go, I think, just to make sure that we don't take any gunpowder home with us. Same process as it is slow, a little bit faster than the flintlock, but then again there's also the grain thing. You could use these in the rain, so you didn't have to stop the battle because it was raining. And if the opposition did have to stop the battle because it was raining, that was your day. So okay, we're going to have, I think it's one more, is it? Yes, we're going to give one more for the benefit of everybody. See, fiddly things, these caps, are a little bit awkward to get on, and again, when you're cold, it's quite difficult to go. There we go. And those were the Enfields and the Zouaves, the first percussion pistols, percussion rifles and shotguns and muskets. Ladies and gentlemen, would you like to demonstrate how fast you can fire with the revolvers? Fire! You can see you can get quite a rate of fire up. And if you thought that you were there and you were an Indian attacking some American gentlemen who had these, you thought, he's fired his gun, we have him. The paper, the gunpowder, the ball and the cap all in one piece. The cartridge as we have today. And what Mary has today here is a little bit of a 16 bore cartridge cut off, because that's exactly the sort of thing they used to fire. The cap, instead of being on the outside of the gun, is now attached to the cartridge. And this one again you can open at the back, but this is quite a complicated, this is what we call the Hollandaise horror. It's a Dutch gun which was originally a flintlock, just like the one we showed you before, Brown Bess. And then when percussion came along, the Dutch, being tight sods, decided, well, hey, we can save ourselves some money here. We'll cut off the pan and we'll put a nipple on it and we'll turn it into a percussion gun. So they've got twice the life out of this gun. That's good economy. And then where breech loading came, i.e. opening it at the back, they thought, well, if we cut the back off it, put a lump of steel in there and put the cartridge in, we can do it that way as well, bend the hammer over a bit. And so this gun has gone through 3 different incarnations. Won't happen today. So Mary has to open that big lump, put the cartridge in, pull the hammer back, and off she goes. Then you've got to open it again, which is not the easiest thing. Get out the old empty, throw it away, get a new one in, put it in, close the breech, pull the hammer back, and you can see you can get quite a rate of fire up here. It's the Springfield, the trapdoor Springfield. Very famous because, once again, sorry, Bill's being rude at my expense at this point. This particular gun is open to the back, but it has another little device in it. You'll see that when Alan has fired it, and watch what happens when he opens the breech. The cartridge is thrown out like a shotgun cartridge, and it means that's one thing less you have to worry about. Now you can see that you can get quite a good rate of fire up with this gun, and people did say that at the Little Big Horn, that it was Custer's fault. No, it was because the guns were bad, the guns didn't work. Well, this one gun does work perfectly well, and so I'm wearing a uniform here. Welsh, isn't it? This particular one was used at, this particular style of gun was used at Dana, where unfortunately it was met with defeat, but much more importantly, Rorke's Drift. You've seen Zulu, I'm sure? This is the sort of gun we used, the Martini Henry. This time you've got a cartridge, just as we had before, but there's no hammer in this case. Everything is done for you. You pull down the trigger guard, it opens up the back of the gun. You push in the cartridge, you close the trigger guard, you pull the trigger, it goes bang, and then when you pull the trigger guard down for the second time, it ejects. And it's one thumping big lump of lead that would come out of the end of this. And this is the sort of withering hail of fire that met the Zulus. Give fire. Now, on the right is a slightly more modern version of it that actually fires the cartridge which went on to become the 303, which we needed for the First and Second World War. But as you can see, if you're trying as a Zulu to try and get across 500 yards with your knob carry in your hand, try and attack people, you had to get through that, and it wasn't happening. That is why we had this wonderful Battle of Rorke's Drift, where the guns themselves were of very, very prime importance.